Hey folks, I'm Melhorn. In this video, we're going to go over 5 things that you need to stop doing if you want to catch catfish. Now, what made me do this video was I've been doing a lot of guide trips lately. I've been taking a lot of people out fishing for catfish. And the great thing about doing this is I get a ton of questions from folks. It's a great way to get stuff answered, figure stuff out, being out there on the water. But I noticed there were some questions that I got repeatedly from different people. And I said, you know what, it might be a good topic for a video, something I can talk with you guys about who aren't in this part of the country and can't do a guide trip with me. So those are some of the things I'm going to go over today. And one of them is the frustration with not catching fish wherever you're fishing at. I hear that a lot. I see it online a lot. And a lot of times, guys, you're fishing in a place that may not have catfish. Now, granted, there are places where you're just not getting bit. You may be doing some of the other things wrong that we're going to talk about. But you got to fish where there are fish. Catfish are not everywhere. They are a widespread fish. Don't get me wrong. They're pretty much every state in the country. But they're not in every pond and every creek that you may be fishing in. I know not everybody has access to all of the top waterways, so you may be fishing a small lake, small pond, community or municipal pond that may not have them. So make sure that you've got catfish where you're at because you can't catch them if they're not in the water. Now, the next one is a question I got several times in the past few weeks, and that was, when do I start going fishing deep for catfish? If you read any of the articles or website info or Facebook info from any of the catfishing sites, you'll see people talking about fishing deep for catfish. It is something that has been the go-to place to fish for catfish since I was a kid. It was always when we were sitting on the riverbank trying to fish, we always had to cast out as far into the river or lake as we could because that deep water out there is where the fish were. Well, folks, like I've said in some of my other videos, the deep water is not always the place. As a matter of fact, it can be the worst place a lot of times of the year. It's all things being equal, depending on the depth and range of depth in the lake, fishing deep can be a bad thing. So what I'm getting at is, don't get locked into, I got to go catch them in the deepest part of the lake. A lot of times those fish, and this is even for you guys that are fishing in these small ponds and little creeks and stuff, sometimes those fish are right up on the bank, especially if the bait fish is up shallow. If you have shad, if you have bluegill, if you have crappie that are up on the bank, that's where the catfish are going to be too, because that is what they are feeding on. In our area right now, coming into the summertime, we're getting ready to have a thermocline in our lakes. Generally, that'll set in sometime around June, and the water below about 25-30 feet will be devoid of oxygen. It's uninhabitable for fish, so there's no real reason to be that deep. Granted, sometimes in the winter, water temperatures down deep are more stable, but depending on what's going on, there will be more plankton and stuff at higher elevations in the water column. Thus, you have more bait fish in those areas. Thus, you have more catfish. So, pay more attention to where the bait fish are than trying to wait for the catfish to go deep. So don't get locked into going deep for catfish unless there's a reason for them to be there. Now, the next one is an important one, and any of my tackle sponsors don't want to hear this, but stop stressing over tackle. I have some of the finest fishing rods around over my shoulder over here. They're great rods. They're great tackle. And if you can afford them and have them in your area and you want them, buy them. These rods work great. But if all you got is 30 bucks and you want to go fishing, go to Walmart, get you what you can get for $30 and go fishing. That is the most important thing. Don't stress over tackle. As you fish more, learn more about it, maybe get into bigger fish, want to fish some different conditions, you can upgrade that tackle. Take your time with that. But don't let having the best stuff and the best reels and the best line keep you from going fishing. It's great that you're interested in it. We all get excited about having new gear, new tackle, new rods, new stuff to play with. There's an excitement that comes with it. I do it too. But don't let it stress you out and keep you from fishing. I've heard some people say, I want to wait to go fishing somewhere until I get a rod or this. Go fishing. Let the fish break you off. You've got something you'll remember that more than the fish that you landed. Trust me, that one that got away and broke that little line that you had or popped the tip off that rod would be much more exciting. So get out and fish. Don't stress about the tackle. Another thing you need to stop doing is having unreasonable expectations when you go fishing. I hear people all the time that get frustrated that look at a 10 or 12 pound fish and go, oh, that's a dink. Well, guess what, folks? If all you've got is 10 or 12 pound fish in the lake that you're fishing, that's a pretty good fish, and it's as big as it's going to get where you're at. Having expectations of catching 50, 60, 70, 90, 100 pound fish in the local municipal pond, it's not going to happen. So you got to have reasonable expectations for where you're fishing. Now, not everybody always knows this, and I understand that, especially if you're new to fishing, but very few areas hold trophy fish, plain and simple. You have to go to some very nice, very good fisheries for that to happen. The majority of the waters out there are going to have reasonable sized fish. So have some reasonable expectations. The great thing about today's world, you can go online, you can go to Facebook, you can go to my website, you can send me a message, and you can kind of find out what to expect in a certain lake or a certain area. Talk to local anglers that are out there fishing. But keep your expectations reasonable. Have fun. That is the biggest thing. Everything becomes a bragging board on Facebook and online, and I hate that. It's a double-edged sword. I love the sharing of knowledge, but everything also becomes a bragging board on there. And people like me are probably to blame for it. I'm sitting on there, showing pictures of good fish that I catch, and for people that are new and getting into the sport, they think they have to be able to catch them. But I fish a lot. I've been doing it a long time, and thank you, Lord, I'm blessed to be in an area that has a good fishable population. The other thing is I'm close to the water, okay? It takes me 14 minutes to be in a lake that I can reasonably expect to catch flatheads and blue cats over 30 pounds. So not everybody has that, especially that close to home. So have some reasonable expectations. Get out there and fish. Try to catch the biggest fish in the waterway that you're fishing, even if that fish is only 3 or 4 pounds. One other thing you need to stop doing is fishing for ghosts. That's a term that I use to describe those fish that you caught last year or maybe a year before last in the same location. Going back to those same places and fishing them over and over and over when the conditions are not right to be there. I call that fishing for ghosts. You're fishing for the ghost of the fish that was there that you caught last year or 2 years ago. Sometimes these locations and these places can be very productive. They can be productive for a number of reasons. They could be a mussel bed. There could be rock piles down there that hold fish. It could be a bend in the river that, is shielded from current, or it's just a lot of things that can hold some of these fish. But fishing when it's right, not just because you caught a fish there last year, 2 years ago, or 10 years ago. Don't fish for those ghosts when it's not right. It's okay to hit these places sometimes just to see what's going on. Sometimes fishing blind works, especially when you have lethargic fish and they're laid up in the mud. You don't always see them on your sonar unit. But if you're bank fishing, sometimes if you have the ability, you guys bank fish a little bit tougher. Sometimes you're locked into a certain area. But if you have some options, don't get locked into fishing those same old places. Let those ghosts wander through the waters. Well, folks, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Here are a couple more videos that I think you're going to like. I'd watch that one and then that one. No, do that one first and then that one. I don't know. Just watch them both. They're both good.